All right. Well, I thought about what in the world will we talk about? Like class. Because we're in the middle. I was going to take Yoda's, and I'm like, no one appreciates that. And it's like, he didn't cover it the way all right. Now, so I was also thinking about, well, what would be connected to what we'd be studying this morning in this morning's sermon. And I thought, what would be perfect is Galatians. That has to do with what we're going to be talking about this morning. So we'll be in Galatians chapter 6. We're going to look at the first 5 verses and kind of how we look out for each other. Kind of at the same time focusing on our own work and pulling our own weight and what that looks like. And so if you open up your Bibles now to Galatians chapter 6, and we'll get started there, Paul starts explaining the situation, a specific situation that's taking place and how to handle that. And he starts off and he says, if anyone is caught in any transgression, and it's like, if anyone is caught sinning, the question is, what should you do about it? So that is a question. So how do you handle a specific situation when you see someone that isn't doing what they're supposed to be doing? Now, we're talking in specifics. So this is members of God's church, his kingdom, and you have to live a certain way in order to be in that kingdom. And so he says, well, they're not doing that, so how do you handle this situation? What do you do?
Well, it says you who are spiritual.
Yeah, so that should be us, right? And then so what do you do?
Well, you talk to them.
You talk to them.
Obviously with...
Well, that's implied.
Right, exactly.
Absolutely. So in fact, the word there is restore. If anyone's caught in this situation, like if you continue to read there, you would want to help them out. Now, and Jim said you would talk to them. Well, that makes sense because you have to discuss the situation that they're going through. You want to address it with them. You don't want to look the other way. Avoid the situation. Like, this is extremely serious. How this is affecting their soul to such a degree that they're going to lose their salvation over it. Now, there are a lot of ways to handle this, and typically how we handle any situation is usually not necessarily the way you should handle the situation. In fact, over a period of time of being a Christian, typically you start, well, not handling situations the way you should, right? Maybe you're not as attentive to other people's needs. Now, so what would that look like? So if anyone is caught up in sinning, how should you handle that? Well, make sure you talk to everyone else about the issue, right? Did you hear what he did? Now, I was talking with his wife the other day, and he's just living crazy, right? Like, I can't believe this guy claims to be a Christian. Like, well, that's gossip. And typically when I don't know how this happens, because anytime you are trying to help a certain individual, you naturally, what's on your mind, it's a topic of conversation. And a lot of times it's like, well, how do you handle that situation? Because we're so connected with the people around us that, and people are talking all the time, it's just a natural conversation topic, right? Andrea said the other day to me, like, hey, so what do you do in this situation? I'm like, are you talking about somebody? And it's like, well, you're a part of their lives. So what is that supposed to look like? If you're not supposed to talk to anyone about the issue, that would be gossip. Well, if there's a moment of concern, a lot of times what we do is we even hear this made. It's a public announcement about their situation. I think Jim even got up here a couple of times. Hey, we want to keep this individual in our prayers. Is that acceptable? Can we do that? Like, is that talking about the individual in a bad light or a gossip, or like, is that situation okay?
You don't say why. I mean, you're saying, hey, keep so-and-so in prayer. Keep all of us in your prayer.
Keep all of us in your like. Now I'm going to tell you, if it's done in the correct way, with love and concern, and you're legitimately wanting to help this individual, that absolutely should be something that we should talk about, right?
Well, as the verse said, you have the word gentleness there. So
Gentleness.
the gentleness,
right.
It opens doors and takes down walls.
It does. And then also too, there's a lot of times like I don't know why anyone hasn't called me. I am not here regularly, right? Like, I'm offended. Like, everyone knows what's going on. We have a board for that, right? What's the situation? Oh, yeah, that's right. He's out of town. Or we know about individuals because we care about them. Now, a lot of times, sometimes we may not have that close relationship with the individual. Maybe it is that, me calling them would be like more, well, oh, you're calling me because there's a problem. Maybe that wouldn't be interpreted in the best light by the individual that's having an issue. Maybe that's best handled by someone who's closer to them, right? Now, we should all be close to each other. In fact, we should all be kept in the loop. I think that's why announcements are made like that. Hey, we want to keep this individual in prayer. Reach out to them because we care about them. Good communication should be what's happening all the time. Now, what happens when you call an individual and you're like, hey, I'm just checking in on you, and you frame it in a light, maybe you're like, hey, read a couple Bible passages, how we're supposed to be acting here, and, I know this is a difficult road to go down, and in fact, one of those situations happened the other day. My mom called me, and she's like, hey, you're not taking the bike on Sunday, are you? I'm like, well, Story has to try out her new motorcycle goggles, right? I'm like, why don't we get those, right? And she's like, and there's a concern, right? That's what happens when we have concern for our brothers and sisters. It's like, if you're going to do something that's going to cause in a dangerous situation, possibly to your soul, it's like, what happens? Well, here's my response. Mom, I'm a safe driver, says my accident a few months ago, and everything's going to be fine. Well, automatically that changed the light of the conversation immediately because she's like, no. And there's this friction, right? I said, Mom, if we continue down this road in this conversation, I don't know if it's going to go in a good direction. And so what happens when you make that phone call? And there's a little bit of conflict there. Like, this person's not walking righteously. There's an issue. You know what immediately happened when the conversation? It got louder, right? I'm trying to impress upon you the seriousness of this situation, right? And typically what happens when you care about someone so much, what happens? And they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Where does that go? Because you are really passionate about who we are, what we do, what we stand for. You're concerned about their soul. Emotions can run high. What will usually happen in those types of situations?
It depends. It can be
Well, when emotions take over, we can become irrational.
Yeah.
So at that point, if you feel the emotions taking over your thought process, it's probably best to change the topic and maybe readdress it at a time where you can control your emotions and be a rational thinker.
Yeah, typically, when emotions are high, that's difficult, especially you care about them a lot, and that's what usually happens. It's like sometimes you gotta say your piece and move on.
Sometimes there's a fine line between saying your piece as you will, and are you really wanting your way?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Do you really want your way in this, or is this the best outcome?
Or is this the best outcome for the situation?
That's what I mean.
Or is this how I want to handle it right now? This happened on Sunday. Sunday at another congregation I was preaching. I got hit in the head with the Bible a few times. Break out some Bible verses, right? Because we're passionate about what we believe, and it's important to us. I mean, how we handle the situation and use our words is extremely important. You can't just start condemning people to hell. You're concerned about their soul. Gentleness is we're going to talk about in a minute.
Well,
now,
we don't like it says here, you can sin as well. So be careful what you say and what you do, because now at this point you're sinning.
Right. That could lead down that road. Absolutely. You can also fall into the trap that they're in. A lot of times we share the same weaknesses. And so what kind of sin is Paul pointing out here specifically? Is he pointing out a specific sin? In Galatians? No. Andrew says no. The word there is any, right? Transgression. I think that's a wide variety. You got a smorgasbord of things that it could be, and it's like it's any sin. Paul's point here, it doesn't matter because all sins are considered the same. It's a transgression against God's law. They all lead to death. And the word that he uses doesn't exclude anything, meaning that everything is on the table. No sin or situation could be left out of this. And we look at how Paul explains the situation. This person is caught in sin. What does that mean? When they're caught in sin, does it mean like, aha, I caught you sinning? That's right. And it's like now it's like, yeah, I am the transgression police here, looking for someone, just waiting for someone to just mess that up, right? Like, absolutely not, right? That's not what this verse is talking about. It's like, you know what kind of attitude is linked to like an attitude like that? Like someone's just like, oh, I caught you. Because typically, what happens when you make a mistake? When you make a mistake and someone sees that mistake, what do? I did it to Story yesterday. She dropped her muffin on the ground. So we just made muffins, and so, and it's just all over the floor. And I'm like, girl, you've got to pay attention to what you're doing. And it's like, what happens with, and you know what's so funny? Because just 2 days ago, I dropped my peanut butter sandwich on the ground. It's like, what is it that we do when we see someone that makes a mistake? What are we so eager to do usually?
Well, we want to, yeah.
Reprimand, all right, yeah.
We want to condemn, not thinking, we don't think first about our situation, which is if you read the whole verse 1, it goes into that.
Right. And, you know, so it's like, I actually apologized to Story afterwards, sitting on the table. I'm sorry, I dropped my peanut butter sandwich last week. But it's a combination of things, right? You continue to mess up and go down this road. It's like, well, you're not paying attention to what's coming. You got to be careful. You got to be watching your steps. And it's like, this is all linked to pride, sprinkled with a little bit of gossip and seasoned with a pinch of criticism, right? And that's typically what we see when we are quick to judge and we leave love out of the situation. Paul's not saying that we catch people in their sins. That's not how this. If you read this all the way through, if anyone is caught by sin, see, no one's caught me. The sin caught me. That's what's happening here. This addiction, this lust has overtaken me. I've lost control. I'm no longer following Christ. And so when we see that, it means it's like you were taken by surprise. They jumped out in front of you. You didn't see it and got ran over. It's unexpectedly. So the situation is like this hijacking of your life, and it's pulling you away from Christ. And typically when you're caught up in a situation like that, you're either blind to the fact or rationalize it in your mind that, I'm okay. You justify your situation. A million times in your head, it's like you keep rolling through that same thing over and over, and it's like you sear your conscience. And like you become numb to your condition, and it's like you're lost. There no longer remains a sacrifice for your sins. So how in the world is a person ever supposed to get out of that situation? Yeah, you fell into this trap, and you're like, it's almost like you don't care anymore. Like this is more important in your life, and this is what you plan on doing. How do you help someone in that situation?
Well, sometimes people who are in that situation, when somebody comes to them in the appropriate manner, you'd be surprised. They can react negatively, but a lot of times, if it's done right, they see the error, and that's what they needed, and that's really what they wanted.
Yeah.
You never know.
It's sincere in seeing, and a lot of times it's accountability, right? If you have accountability for your actions, you're less likely to go down that road. Well, what strengthens your accountability? If okay, I struggle with things. I don't know. I mean, you guys are all different. You're all perfect. And so I can't make it through the day. But what makes that better? What makes that staying on the road easier?
Well, when you talk about it with somebody, that is the person you're accountable to.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to.
Right. So people help you in that process. Like I wake up every day and I have freedom. I don't have to go anywhere. Like I don't have a boss to answer to. Well, I have independent people, and I could keep putting them off, or I would not take that job, whatever. And it's like, but what makes me wake up in the morning? Well, I put it in my calendar. We talked about that during our leadership class. But the people in our lives add accountability. You make commitments. You hold yourself to it. Now, chances are in the situation where you've made a decision to walk away, and you make that decision, sometimes there's nothing anyone else can do or say to change your mind. But a lot of times, if you love that individual, and in fact, there's scriptures in play here, what happens when you withdraw from someone? They lost their family connection. They lost their support group. And that's why it's so important. That's why he's like, here's your job. You restore them. And it's like this being caught, taken by surprise. It's like you were walking that way. You know what's important. You know what's good for you. And so if you really care about that person's soul, I love them. I'm not going to stand around and watch this happen. You know, when an announcement is made and you think about that person that needs help, what's your initial reaction there? Like, okay, so announcement, let's keep so-and-so in our prayers because they're struggling or whatever may be the issue. What goes through your mind when that announcement's made?
Well, your thought should be, how can I help the person?
How can I help the person?
Glad that's not me.
Right.
Because that's the total wrong.
Glad that's not me. All right. Now, okay, you thinking about how you can help that person. Now, what goes through my mind? I'm going to call that guy. I'm gonna see what I can do in that situation to help move it forward to a positive direction. Now, then the week goes on, and I'm like, man, I really got to put that in my calendar. Like things come up, and it's like, man, I really should be taking a more proactive role. It's like, I think this is why Paul wrote this. Is like, it's your responsibility. Because this is your family we're talking about. This is extremely important. And Paul here in that situation, he's like, this is an active word. Restore him. Do something. Take action. Like the Apostle Paul says that we don't stand by and do nothing. This guy needs help. Yeah, okay. I remember my friend, we were headed to the job site. We're on the freeway, and right in front of us, a car spun out, and it crossed 4 lanes of traffic, went onto Varner, flipped over the barbed wire fence. It was barbed wire at that time. And it comes to a stop in this dust cloud. It's upside down. People are like trying to climb out the back window. Kids are all over the place. There was a car seat that was thrown out of the vehicle. And like this, my buddy didn't even skip a beat. He went, whoop, pulled over the side of the road, got out, had his gloves on. Like, where did you get the gloves, dude? Had his first aid kit, goes over there, and he's holding this kid in like to keep his spine straight, right? And he's yelling out orders to the people that are standing by. Hey, can you help this guy over here? And I'm like, wow. And here I am just standing there watching this whole thing play out, like kind of helpless, like, what do I do? Yeah, I was like, why is that we're so reluctant to help in a situation that has extreme need, or that there's an emergency taking place and you're just kind of like a deer caught in the headlights?
Well, I think, yeah, go ahead.
Somebody else will do it, and or you're not prepared. It's a bystander effect. Now, okay, what prevents the bystander effect? Because I don't want to be a bystander. I was a bystander in that situation. I'm like, oh, this is horrid. I don't know what to do, and I'm just standing here like Bradley.
Proper training.
Proper training.
Proper training with the proper mindset, so when something happens, you're ready to act instantly. So Christians should not be any different. We have to be prepared. We have to be strong in the faith. We have to know God's word. And when we are lacking in any one of these areas, the situation's going to arise, and we're going to be in that bystander effect. I'm going to let the preacher take care of it. I'm going to let someone who's older and wiser take care of it, rather than stepping up into that leadership role as a strong Christian and saying, I love you, you're sinning, I don't want you to go to hell, let me help you. And it's all about love. It's not about condemning them. That's why it's the spirit of gentleness. And we have to use, as Yoda would say, tact, because we could definitely make it worse and push them out. And I know just a week ago, we were having this conversation, and Lisa was saying, like, a lot of Christians are so mean and rude and judgmental, and it pushes people away and out of the church.
Right.
That's why I think that's one of the big reasons why the church is dying.
Yeah, Lisa made that comment last week. And I think that's a very important. If you're not prepared, then where are you at? I just got my truck back. We're headed to Lowe's. Story gets out of the truck, and she slams her finger inside the door. This happened like yesterday. And I see the look on her face, and it's just like tears, and she's like, I don't know what to do. Like, use your other hand, open the door, because she couldn't get her hand out, right? And I'm like, I thought she was playing with me. And so I run around as fast as I can, and I unlock the door because it was locked, right? And she pulls her finger out, and it's a pretty deep cut. And I'm like, well, that's a problem. You know what? I just got my truck back. The only time I don't have my emergency kit in the truck, right? I got it back from the auto body place. I had to clean it out. And so it's like, I've never used that thing. Never. It's been, 5 years since I got it? Never used it. I'm like, that's not going back in. That was my mindset. Why would I need this? I haven't used it in forever. Not prepared for a situation. We went into Lowe's. I got a Band-Aid. All right. So now what happens when you are left unprepared? You don't know what to do. How are you going to restore that individual? Like, you are standing there on the bystander side, and I'm going to tell you that's not a good place to be standing. You can't stand there if you are an active, on-fire Christian. And see, God demands that from us. This action word, restore, that's you. That's your responsibility.
And the scripture to go along with it, because I couldn't help but think about this when Bradley was describing what he said. 2 Timothy 3:16, all scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, reproof, correction, instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be complete, thoroughly equipped with every good work. Now,
complete, yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Somebody who's not listening, they're going, why did you say that?
Yeah. Because in order to be complete for every good work, what do you have to do? You got to be prepared.
You can't be a bystander. Yeah. And that's what that verse, you can't be a bystander with that verse.
Okay.
That's about not being a bystander.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm so the bystander. That's my natural reaction to every situation. Well, I'm just going to watch that happen. Because I feel like I'm going to do more harm than good. How many times have you actually taken action and it turned out good? Like, for me, it's like failure.
That's where the saying, no good deed goes unpunished.
Right. Even when you handle it right, it doesn't seem to turn out good, right? It's like, hey, I'm afraid that I'm going to damage my relationship with that person. Like, I'm not gonna handle it right. Maybe they're gonna even drag me down in the situation. I'll sympathize with them because that's what we typically do. It's like, oh no, I understand. It's difficult. And then you don't really help the situation through. It's like you get something stuck in your teeth and you don't want to be that guy. Hey, you got a big giant piece of broccoli hanging out of your mouth, and it's like, man, that's embarrassing. No, what's embarrassing is they're walking around all day long with that hanging out of their mouth, and everyone sees it. No one says anything. Right.
You mentioned earlier, it's 100% true, is Christians, we're a family, and typically a family knows the ins and the outs of each other's lives, more or less, and I think we're kind of in a situation where, we're not really related, so we all come together, and then we all go away, and we all come together, and we all go away. So if we're only seeing 2 hours of each other's lives, I don't know when you're caught in transgression. We have to be intertwined in each other's lives. I mean, it's like a normal family. You constantly see each other. You constantly are talking, or at least you should be. And that's how we need to be. Because if we're not, I'll never know when you're in transgression, and I'll never be able to restore you.
That's a good problem, but it raises all kinds of other questions. I'm going to bring in my relationship with Don. Don and I hang out all the time. No, we don't. Not really. I text him throughout the week sometimes, and he texts me, and I don't respond to him, and he gets all upset. And so it's like, that relationship, how are you going to maintain? How many people, 45 record attendance, right? 32 last week. And so 32 people? Oh my goodness, how am I going to handle this? I got to be a part of everyone's life? That's going to be difficult for me to handle. Jeff, he doesn't even live here. How am I going to, oh man, I'm going to go drive up to Banning because I got to get that in. What?
Show up at his work.
Yeah. Show up at his work. That's always good, right? Okay, let me give you an example. Because see, then let's compound the issue. Because it's like we're always focused on trying to save the saved, right? And when we're trying to save the lost, and then you're trying to be a part of people. I get a text message yesterday, and this guy, his name is Preston, and he's got stage 4 lung cancer. I didn't even know. I used to work with this guy. He's a really good friend. He doesn't live his life right. And my buddy texted me and said, hey, it's on Facebook. I'm like, oh, shoot, man. He goes, yeah, he's in Loma Linda, and he's going to die. I'm like, I didn't even know. Like, I haven't seen him in like 4 months. I go, well, let's go up and see him tomorrow. Tomorrow? Tomorrow. Oh, man, what am I doing tomorrow? And so I'm looking at my calendar. I'm like, no, I got to make time to do that. Like, well, I'm canceling. I'm like, okay, we're going to go up there. But, that's time. And Bradley says we need to be a part of each other's lives. And in fact, that we see that happening in Acts. People are like giving up massive amounts of time, but that wasn't it. They were giving up possessions and property, and you have all this, like, oh, wait, hold on. When's the left time for me? like
giving TVs to people and stuff.
Right, yeah. And how do you handle those situations? Like, you only have so much of it. And we're supposed to be paying attention. Now, this Greek word here, restore, let's look at that real quick and what that means. It means, from the Greek, it's setting a fractured bone. It means to knit together, to repair or adjust, and it sounds extremely painful because it is. When you restore someone, it's not really a pleasant process, usually. It's going to demand...
Well, you have to also keep in mind, if you love thy neighbor as yourself, it's about the person, it's not about you.
Right.
And you change the approach and your mindset, which we all should be every day, that it's about the other person, it's not about our selfish needs and wants, then it makes it easier.
I don't know if it makes it easier, but it clarifies what we're supposed to do. Yeah, I know what you're saying. Our concern is that we immediately try to repair that situation. We do everything within our power to do that. This is exactly what Jesus taught in Matthew chapter 18 when he talks about, you have a problem with someone's sinning against you, what do you do in that situation? We're given specific directions on how to handle it. It requires you to do something. You can't let things go. If a brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault. It's between you and him alone. And if he listens, you've gained a brother. It's the outcome of the situation. It doesn't even matter what the issue is. You're looking for resolution under the guidelines of truth. So when we look at the other side of the restoration process, who's supposed to talk to that person that's walking down this dangerous path? Like, something gets brought to your attention. Like, usually that's in the form of a second party. It's like, I didn't want to know that. Now what are you going to do? Now if you go to that person, you're like, hey, I heard from so-and-so. Hold on a minute. Like, what? Like, what do you do in that situation? Because I, a lot of times, unwillingly get information secondhand. How do you handle that? You realize that there's something that's possibly amiss.
You got to tell that person, hey, you need to go to him then.
All right. Hey, I already did. Hey, Jeff, I'm asking you now. What? or I'm going to, hey, I went to this so-and-so, and, I'm trying to help them out. Like, well, why are you dragging me into this? Like, a lot of times we don't want to accept any accountability or responsibility, but again, how are we supposed to handle everything in that situation? Now, see, there's guidelines. It makes it pretty easy because it says, well, it's the one that's spiritual, the one that has this mindset. Well, that rules me out because I mess up. I'm the most sinniest person of all the sinners out there, right? and it's like a lot of times we sell ourselves short. Who am I? And am I living right? Like, if I go and point out someone else's fault, it's like, man, you got that stick pointing back at you and all your other faults that you have. How is that supposed to play out?
The gentleness saves you too.
The gentleness.
That saves you too.
Yes.
You're doing it with a proper attitude. It's not going to them as though you are perfect. That individual who's wrong understands already before the conversation started that you're a sinner too.
Hopefully,
yes. They know that.
Yeah.
But that's why I said everything is how you break that wall down, if there is a wall. If there's no wall, then it's all the better. So the gentleness is how you approach it.
You know,
hopefully it keeps everything.
How do you guys view that gentleness factor that Jim's talking about? Because I'm going to go to you like a beat down dog. Hey, like,
That's the difference between meekness and weakness. You can be meek and gentle without being weak. And you can be even firm in your voice.
I'm going to tell you.
Without a wall going up.
That takes practice. A lot of practice. And maybe that's some rehearsal time.
And I think in any congregation, especially if you're involved in a congregation, for those who just come and sit, it's different. But for people who are involved, this happens all the time. You have no idea.
It does.
Maybe you do.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say that.
No, I don't.
But it happens all the time. This is happening regularly.
Absolutely. Because we all fall short.
No, it does. And I'm not saying
we all, yeah.
I'm saying it's happening all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And it comes to not passing the buck, looking to others so that you can see how you can help them. It comes from accepting your responsibility that you're given. Anytime, and it's like when you focus in on this, it's the spiritual that are to act in that situation. And that is defined by people who don't practice sin, that are living their lives. It doesn't mean that they don't make it, but you're not constantly practicing sin. You have changed your life in such a way that you're living according to God's will. And that is a difference. So one of the things that Paul's talking about, we don't do these things. We don't practice sin. And you remember, there's a list, what that looks like. But there's more to that list. It's anything that puts yourself first and God second. And it's,
most of those things, they entail everything that you could possibly think of.
Right.
Basically.
Absolutely.
The category, maybe
idolatry's up there. Yeah.
It's all
Broad categories that cover everything, and a lot of times what we see is people who are spiritual are the ones practicing these qualities are the ones that are acting in these situations. If not, you should be working on your life so you're not practicing these things. So the question then becomes, when we're qualified to help an individual, to assist a brother who's caught in sin, and now it should be everyone in the church. Everyone in the church should have an active role in that to some degree. Whether it's supporting people that are helping the individual that's helping the other individual. I know a lot of times how we support each other is we spend time with each other. I think that's one of the best ways to do that. What are other ways that we can help our brothers and sisters that we see them being caught up in trouble?
Having conversation. When you have a conversation with your fellow brothers and sisters, you find out the things that are needed.
Absolutely.
That's kind of where it starts. If you don't have the conversation, you may never know. And so it's really on you.
It is.
To initiate the conversation in many ways.
This could be a really good opportunity. I had a guy that I worked with, and he's like, "Hey man, it looks like you got your life together," and he was asking me how to handle a certain situation. I was like, "Oh, that's good." He went home and he tried it. I'm like, it's not like you're gonna just try it. It's like going to the gym, and it's like expecting results on the first day. It's like, no, second day, third day, fourth day, and it's like this. Nothing's happening. I quit. It's a continuing repetition of continue to walk down that path. And so he came back to me, and he's like, well, what do you do in this situation? Like, hey, let's just talk it out and see how to handle those situations. And then the Bible got brought into it. But see, it wasn't enough because he was still struggling. I'm like, well, why is he still struggling with these things if he knows what to do? It's because I wasn't sharing my life with him. I wasn't sharing my struggles with him. When he started to help me move through my life, all of a sudden, his life started to change. It's a group effort when we help each other. Like, making a serious change in one's life is extremely difficult. It's kind of like the teacher. When the teacher teaches, the teacher usually learns more than the people sitting there listening. Like, I was talking a story, like, are you zoning out on me again? Like, because she kind of fogs over. And it's like, but when she's teaching, I say, hey, how do you do this? It's a different situation. She's engaged. And there's this interaction between two individuals that take place. When you walk away from something, something you love and enjoy, and it's difficult. It's extremely hard. I'm like, this morning I'm like, Jim, you looks like you lost some weight. And he's like, I did. And it's like, but what do you have to walk away when you do that? All the things that I really enjoy to do. And it's hard. And this is where that gentleness comes in and how you handle the situation. This isn't something that's easy. It's like when you hit over the head with the Bible and you already know what to do. It's the approach. You don't want to turn people off to what you're saying. It makes people defensive. The reason why people are correcting people in public settings is never really effective is because it doesn't work. So the mindset here is that you have a log hanging out of your own eye. You need to be aware of that you aren't perfect. And all of your family knows all of your quirks, all of your issues. They should. I know all of Bradley's issues. He knows all of my issues. And it's like, how do we move forward with that? Oh, we hang out together and we do good things. And it's about good deeds. It's about walking that path, showing people Christ. And it's no wonder that one of the fruits of the Spirit is gentleness. I don't know where that is. There it is. Like the whole reason why your responsibility is given to you when you're spiritual is because it's a sign of maturity. You have grown into this position. And this is how we are to move through our lives. My mind always goes back to how Paul viewed himself when he made the statement in 1 Timothy 1:15, the whole reason Christ died for you was so he can save you. It's me. I'm the worst out of all of them. That's that mindset you bring into the equation when you're talking to somebody. A common misconception, like Bradley pointed out, that's the preacher's job. Or that's the elder, the teacher's responsibility. Like, no, it's all of our responsibilities. Another reason why we have this attitude that's given is because of what takes place. Because the similarities and weaknesses that we share. How long do I go? All right. 45? Okay.
You heard the wrong cough? Is that what it was?
Yeah, wrong call. That was the wrong sign. Now,
Mark's got it down.
yeah, I was always kind of glancing at him. Right. Don't be shy. Yeah. When pride comes in, it's showing that, look at me, I'm doing it right. And we have the ability to use that correction from time to time, and that's the source of pride and arrogance. The warning is to keep watch of yourself because there is a temptation in this process. What is that temptation? What?
They could be tempted and fall short.
That you'd be tempted and fall short. Now I remember Balaam only speak where the Lord speaks and wait. How much is this situation going to affect me? That we have to be aware that no one is above temptation. Even if you're trying to do the right thing, Satan's going to tempt us in that wrong process. Okay, well, moving out of this verse and we go to verse 2, we're making good progress. How do we bear one another's burdens? And labeling the completion of the law of Christ, how do we show that Christ is a perfect example in our lives? Now, everything that Christ showed us is that perfect example. That our life looks like all of our sins and he threw them into the trash bin and forgot about them. How can we be fixed and how can we be restored if we're broken? And each of us has the same situation that we love Christ and he loves us and we are to love each other. But carrying each other's problems is extremely difficult. What happens when you receive information about somebody and you're talking with somebody and you're carrying that weight around with you of that person's struggle? What happens?
You take on the burden.
You,
in essence, just the stress.
The stress and I mean, even just keeping that to yourself and trying to hold on to that's heavy. This is where you're carrying their burden. Remember what Paul said in Galatians chapter 5. He says, through love we serve one another, and that's how we fulfill the law. this is suggesting that we have a relationship established with each other. It's not a surface level connection. And that alone is difficult. That's what Bradley was talking about. Like, you are connected, and you should be connected with each individual member. We just don't, set off our responsibility. Someone else will take care of it. Now, I hate that we're not spending time together because of the situations that we go through in our lives. We get busy. Like, how is it that you manage your time effectively that you're still a part of each other's lives? I don't have the answer. Hey, let me look at my calendar. Let me see where I can open up time. It's an aggressive situation that you have to be a part of. Because what's the natural reaction? I'm going to tell you what my natural reaction is. My calendar is full of stuff, and all of that is because, well, I got to take care of my daughter. I got to provide for her, and then what's the future going to look like? And there's worry, doubt, and concern all taking place, and it's like, how do we handle that? Because that is absolutely the way the devil kind of works to destroy relationships. How do we manage our time so we can actively spend more time with each other? Do we look for those opportunities? Now, okay, so I was like, well, I don't know how to do that. I know, I'll have a Bible study. Like, my poor attempt to spend more time with people. What's the answer here? Because what should we be about? Every time the church was gathering, the people were gathering in Acts, what were they doing? They were studying the scriptures. They were eating together. They were all a part of that. It's a communication, how we talk, how we grow. And now, okay, here's the problem. Like, Yoda brought this up. We want to address the visitors that come in before we hit up each other and have our own conversations. Okay, that's important. But you know what I do? I tend to go to Jim. When everyone comes together, I can talk to Jim for hours and hours and hours. I don't know why. We have things in common, right? But I don't necessarily go over and talk to Jake all that much as I talk to Jim.
I'm better looking.
Yeah, he is. Way better looking. Yeah, now, if I was attracted to dudes, that might be something to be concerned about. Now, how is it that we can get better at that? Or do we need to get better at that?
Sometimes you have to get out of your comfort zone.
Sometimes you got to get...
That's what you got to do. I mean, there's people in here who, just like as you said, they can walk up to anybody, doesn't matter who they are, and they can talk. Even some of the young ones here. They walk up to a stranger who's visiting, no problem, and they're talking. But there's other people that are, you've got that in every congregation. So that may not be your issue and my issue. We can do that.
Oh, it's my issue.
But everybody's got something.
Yes.
So whatever your strength is, that's where you need to work on. And then by working on that strength, you can go out and start using that idea and applying it to the next thing. That's what you do. And
yes.
That's what we need. We all need to do that. Exactly.
Self-examination. So Becky told me, I don't know why you just can't go up and have a conversation with someone. And I'm like, it's torture. It's like, I'd rather do anything else. I'd rather be on my property, on my orchard, just maintaining my trees, being by myself. I love that. I don't want to talk to people. That's not what we're commanded to do. We're commanded to be a part of everyone's lives. And it's force is the actual word I use, yes. And getting out of your comfort zone is extremely hard. See,
but once you do it a few times, it's not so bad.
Still bad, but it's not so bad, right? And that's what it takes practice. It's putting off yourself and what you would prefer to do, and that is actually what a Christian is. They are no longer themselves anymore. They're acting different because of who they are. And so we'll end there. And thanks for being in class this morning.